In this video I'm going to be talking about the notes of the stave and how they relate to the keys on a piano. Whilst throughout this video I'm going to be referring to the piano quite a lot, this can equally apply to any other kind of instrument which uses this sort of music notation, and it also applies throughout music theory. First, a little bit about the piano. So we can see that there's a pattern of notes which goes all the way up and down. So we have groups of 2 black notes, and right in between all of those we have groups of 3 black notes. This just gives the piano a bit of geography, so it makes it easier to identify certain notes. And we give each of the keys on the piano a letter. So each key is assigned a letter from A to G. So we have A, B, C, D, E, F and G. Those are all the letters we need, because as soon as we get to G we start all over again with A. Going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then again we start from the start and A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that goes on all the way up the piano and all the way up the stave. So as an example, C we will always find to the left of the 2 black notes. So if you go to any piano in the world, find the 2 black notes, the key immediately to the left will always be a C. And these particular C's on the picture there relate to these ones on the stave, which will become a bit more clearer later in the video. And then just a little quick note about the 3 notes in the middle. So the ones which are joined up there are actually identical. They're the exact same note, just written on the 2 different staves. This will become a little bit more clearer in the next part of the video. Before we go any further, I'd just like to talk very briefly about the history of music notation and how it developed into the music notation that we know today. It's quite a long and complex history, so it really will be quite brief. One of the earliest examples that we have of music notation is this one. So here we can see a Latin text, and above that Latin text we've got what are called neumes. These give a general shape or contour that a melody should take. So this example may sound a bit like this. So that may have been quite hard to follow, because as I mentioned before, there's no actual notes, just a general contour of what should be sung. And it's very open to interpretation, so one person who sings it might sound completely different from another person who sings it. If we jump forward quite a long time now, we start to get music notation which looks like this. So here we've got 4 lines on the stave with the words underneath. And this time we've got little diamond shapes which are kind of scattered across the stave, which look a little bit like notes as we know them today. So it's a little bit more precise. It's less vague whether it's just up or down. There's actually a specific note which the composer would like the singer to sing. If we take these 4 lines and then we imagine that a composer wanted more range, they would eventually start to add extra lines, which gives them effectively more notes to play with. So here we have 6 lines, 7, 8, 9, 10, and eventually 11 lines. So that's quite a lot of range of notes that you can get out of that, but it looks very daunting and quite hard to read. So if you can imagine a note very low down on the stave and then one very high up, it will be hard to know exactly how high you are jumping in between those notes. So in order to make things clearer, they removed the middle line. So that middle line is still there, but it's just invisible. Now if we start to add on things from music notation as we know them today, it looks a lot more familiar to what we have nowadays. And what composers would do is, if they needed to use that middle line, they would just add it as and when they needed it on what we call a ledger line. So that line is still there, it's invisible, but we add it when we need it. If we then separate the two staves out a little bit, it becomes much clearer and looks a lot more what we are familiar with these days. And right in the middle there you can see middle C, which I showed you is the exact same note on its own little ledger line right in the middle of the stave, and it's just kind of a continuation from the bass up to the treble clef. Now, I just mentioned the treble clef, so this is the treble clef on the left hand side there, sometimes known as the G clef because the loop kind of centers around the G line of the stave. And this particular clef is usually used for higher pitched notes and by a higher pitched instrument such as the violin, the flute and the clarinet. And on the piano, it's generally used for the right hand or for the keys to the right of the center of the piano. And here is the treble clef sat on the stave. So I'm going to overlay a keyboard over the top of the stave to make things a little bit clearer. So on the bottom space here, we have F. The second space up is A. The third space up is C. And then the very top space is E. And as you can see, those letters spell the word face just by pure coincidence, but it's very useful because we can use that word then to figure out exactly which letter goes with which space. So for example, the third line up, third letter of face is C. The very first space is F, and the very top space is E. In between the spaces we have the lines. So first of all, the very bottom line we have E. The second line up we have G. The middle line is B. The fourth line up, or the second line from the top, is D. And then finally, the very top line, we have F. These, as you can see, unfortunately don't spell a word. So instead of that, we have to use an acronym. The most famous one, or the one which I was taught, is Every Good Boy Deserves Food. There are various different versions of this, so you can have Every Good Boy Deserves Football, or I think popular in America is Every Good Boy Does Fine, but you can come up with your own version, your own acronym. So long as it has those letters, it will help you figure out what the letter is of each line of the stave in the treble clef. And here we put all of those together. So we have the spaces, F-A-C-E, which spells face. In between those, E-G-B-D-F, every good boy deserves food. And you get all the notes on the stave, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And you can see there how they relate to the notes on the piano. And now we have the bass clef. So the bass clef is sometimes known as the F clef because the big circle there actually sits on the F line. And this clef is usually used for lower pitched notes or by lower pitched instruments such as the double bass, the bassoon or the clarinet. And on the piano, it's generally used for the left hand or the keys to the left of the center of the piano. So again, using the keyboard over the top of the stave, we've got the bass clef there. Unfortunately, the letters are different than they are from the right hand, so we need different acronyms to work out what the spaces and the lines are. So for the spaces, the bottom one we have A, second space up we have C, Third space up we have E, and then finally G. Okay, so this again doesn't spell a word. You kind of have ace there with a G on the end, but it's useful to have another acronym instead. So we have all cows eat grass. For the lines, again we did a different acronym. We have the bottom line, which is G. Then we have the second line up, which is B. And we have D for the middle line. The fourth line up would be F. And then finally A at the very top. Again, no word, so we have an acronym, which is green buses drive fast always. And just as before, putting those together, so we have all cows eat grass, A, C, E, G. In between those, we have green buses drive fast always, G, B, D, F, and A, which gives us all the notes of the bass clef. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Quite nicely onto the keyboard like this. And that gives us all the notes of the bass and the treble clef. So from the bass clef there, you can see the red notes. We have green buses drive fast always, G, B, D, F, and A. The green notes in between those, all cows eat grass, A, C, E, and G. Then we jump up to the right hand, or the treble clef. We have every good boy deserves food, E, G, B, D, and F. Then in yellow, we have face, F, A, C, E. So going up the stave, from the very bottom to the top, we have G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. In the middle, we have B, C, and D. And then continuing on, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And there it all fits on the piano, just like that. Middle C right in the middle of there, kind of the crossroads between the two staves.